The socio-economic and psychological impact of the HIV epidemic in Ghana has shown no sign of abating, even though the epidemic is showing signs of stabilization. The frontiers of HIV treatment has expanded over the period, and many more people have benefited and are alive today because of access to life-saving antiretroviral therapy. However, the absence of a cure to HIV and AIDS has made the social aspect of the disease more difficult to contain. There is a disproportionate non-acceptance of persons infected or affected by HIV and AIDS to such an extent that persons living with HIV want to keep their HIV serostatus secret for fear of being stigmatized and discriminated against. This uninformed coping mechanism unfortunately makes it difficult for people living with HIV to accept their serostatus and access treatment or live positively, and this ultimately leads to their premature death. Worst of it all, the non-disclosure of serostatus prevents the use of other preventive measures to protect their spouses or sexual partners. Several reviews have shown that stigma and discrimination is among one of the biggest barriers to the national response. As part of its national efforts, the Ghana AIDS Commission, with support from NAPLAS Ghana, the Danish government, and the US government, hopes to reduce stigma and discrimination through its new initiative, Heart to Heart.
The main purpose of the Heart to Heart campaign is to provide a human face to HIV and AIDS through open disclosure of seropositive status by persons living with HIV. Through the Heart to Heart campaign, we will educate the people of this country, we will provoke public discourse, and ultimately reduce stigma and discrimination against persons living with HIV. Now, stigma is the most important barrier to public or societal action. It is a major reason why many people are reluctant to get counseled and tested for HIV. When people are diagnosed positive, they are reluctant to avail themselves of the services that are readily available. People fear the social disgrace associated with being HIV positive or even being perceived as HIV positive. So that in an era where effective treatment is readily available, AIDS continues to devastate societies around the world as well as families in this country.
3 persons living with HIV volunteered as ambassadors to help bring their life stories to the public. Various strategies were employed to equip ambassadors to enable them embark on this journey. Critical amongst them were the psychosocial counseling.
I'm going to be talking about stigma and discrimination. We know that there's a lot of challenge when we start talking about HIV, AIDS, with regard to stigma and discrimination. So we're looking at a mark that confers a negative label on whatever is marked, okay? So I'm marking something. I can decide to mark a page in a book to remember where I am, okay? It's a positive, it's a mark for it. So when I see that mark, I am happy. This one is a mark that confers that something is unworthy, undesirable, and therefore bad or negative. So a stigma is a mark that communicates to everybody that this thing is unworthy, undesirable, unwanted. And when we start to relate it to HIV, then we start to see that, again, things that we don't understand, things that we are uncomfortable with, we tend to label them in a certain way. HIV affects the body, and stigma affects what? The soul. You see, HIV, in terms of the virus being present in your body, is a physical thing, isn't it? It can be determined. But the stigma and discrimination we are talking about is man-made.
Communicating to the masses to bring home the issues of stigma meant that our ambassadors had to be groomed in the art of public speaking.
When you are talking to people, you must try very, very hard to capture their attention. So you need to create a conversation. And it is after you've created that conversation that you yourself, you'll be relaxed. If you don't create that conversation, there'll be so much tension between the two of you in that room. Sometimes the tension is so thick that you can even cut it with a knife. You believe what you see more than what you hear. So your body language, when you're talking, if you're saying a good thing and your body language is something else, people will believe more of the body language. They say, look, this woman said this in a very nice way, but did you see her body language? In fact, when I looked at her, I think, no, what she was saying, she doesn't even mean it. If the other person you're talking to cannot understand you, you haven't communicated at all. Your communication has failed.
Finally, legalities regarding HIV and AIDS had to be explained in detail.
We understand what the human right to dignity is all about, so that we can defend ourselves, so that when somebody treats us in a very degrading manner, we can stand up for our rights, knowing that this is a human right that our 1992 Constitution has guaranteed. And all the state institutions that we have mentioned during our discussions are supposed to protect that right for us.
In a rather chilling and emotional expose, our ambassadors recounted their stories on how they got infected.
My senior pastor have to disclose my HIV status on the pulpit, which he did not to do. Because before you disclose somebody's status, I think you have to ask the person's consent. And the way he disclosed it, and the way people hear it, how they perceive it, how they broadcast it in town, make it difficult for me to go back to that church.
I got infected in my youthful age, my very youthful age.
How old were you when you got it?
20 years.
20 years.
And I'm now 24 years. So because I want to make this impact, I don't need to hide anything. I need to come out.
In a society where stigmatization is so high, what motivated these brave ones to open up?
My mission in this Heart-to-Heart campaign as an ambassador is to help to eliminate mother-to-child transmission of HIV. Because if there is no intervention, 15 to 45% of children born out of women who are infected with HIV will also be infected. And also, I intend to educate the youth about the dangers of premarital sex. This is what motivates me, and this is what I hope my experience will teach others.
My motivation in the Heart-to-Heart campaign is to tell Ghanaians that couples can live a healthy and productive life while they are HIV positive. And you should go and know your HIV status and stop discrimination.
What motivated me into this Heart-to-Heart campaign is to help eliminate stigma and discrimination against people living with HIV and their families at workplaces.
I joined Heart-to-Heart campaign to challenge people to support their sexual partners when they are HIV positive.
People living with HIV are just like us. Touch a heart, save a life.